Hey guys, today we're going to be reading Red Thunder Tropic Lightning, The World of a Combat Division in Vietnam by Eric M. Bergerud. I chose this piece, we're going to be reading the preface, because it shows a really good look of what daily life was like for a soldier in Vietnam, not just related to combat. Also, in the preface, Bergerud does a really good job of examining his process of thought as both a historian and a journalist when compiling his sources for this book. This book examines the world confronted by the men of an American combat division during the Vietnam War. Although the unit in question is the 25th Infantry Division, this is not a unit history or standard military chronology. Instead, I try to view all the major parts of the soldier's world, including subjects as diverse as climate, living conditions, deadly combat, and morale. The world inhabited by the soldiers of the 25th Division was not theirs alone. The men and women who served with other frontline units in Vietnam will immediately recognize the major landmarks. Using the 25th Division as a focal point, I hope to help the people of today better understand what the Vietnam War was like in fact, not fiction. So we're setting up what we're going to be looking at here. I know a bit about the Vietnam War. Obviously, wasn't there, way too young. But this will show us what it means to be in an infantry division, and also is going to show us what it was like to just be on the ground in Vietnam during the height of the war. This work is based on a variety of sources. The documentary foundations come from a great number of 25th Division records generated during the war, the most important of which are the large quarterly division reports. They in turn are complemented by the quarterly reports that came from 2 Field Force Vietnam, the Army headquarters for the units operating in the provinces near Saigon. The Center of Military History, Department of the Army, provided these documents to me while I was doing research on the Village War in a Vietnamese province. I used this research to write The Dynamics of Defeat, the Vietnam War in Ha Ni Kia province, which deals with the political and military struggle waged by both sides and an important part of the 25th Division's area of operations. So here he's going over what sources he's using. They're all first-hand sources. They're coming straight from the headquarters of the Army located in Vietnam during the Vietnam War. So these are absolutely first-hand sources that he is using here. The most important resource is a collection of tapes and correspondence from veterans of the 25th Division. But tape transcriptions and informal correspondence rarely take a form that readers are used to seeing in print. People do not speak the way they write. In addition, the context for events described was often developed through very lengthy narratives. If some of the quotes appear long, bear in mind that I transcribed several tapes that were over 4 hours in length. Consequently, I did edit the transcriptions. I also arranged sentences so they followed a clear chronology. I did not indicate where one part of the transcription ended and another commenced. Had I done so, the responses would have been covered with ellipses, much harder to follow. And though I changed a few terms so the lay reader would understand what was described, I was extremely careful not to alter the meaning of any person's account. Overall, the majority of the accounts are very nearly true transcriptions. I made a few, if any, changes in the words used, though I did alter grammatical forms that sound perfectly fine but look like errors on paper. Rather than employing footnotes, I have injected a small number of comments explaining points that might not be clear to the reader. Comments are found within brackets. If most accounts appear well put, that reflects the intelligence and sensitivity of the respondents. So he's just letting you know what he did as a journalist. He took a bunch of interviews, first-hand interviews from the combatants of the 25th Infantry Division and transcribed them into a more narrative form. That way we're not just reading the transcripts, but we're almost like we're reading a story. So he's just letting you know that if you go back and listen to the tapes, he's changed a few words just to make it fit in a book, to where it's not verbatim from the tapes. Although the matter never came up, I would not have accepted anonymous accounts. Any author who contends that men and women who served in Southeast Asia will not discuss Vietnam publicly is dishonest. I did, however, alter many accounts myself. When men describe the deaths or injuries of comrades, I deleted the names of the victims and I omitted names and any descriptions of embarrassing or tragic episodes. Details like this could only hurt people and would do nothing for the story I present in these pages. In any case, all the tapes and letters that were used in this research are in the public record. For the moment, they are in my possession, but I hope they will find a permanent home where they can help other students of the war. Only a small percentage of the accounts I compiled appear in this book, yet they encompass a broad range of issues concerning Vietnam. In a genuine way, I am privileged because I was able to listen to these accounts. I have tried to do them justice, but the intense feeling and sheer power of the voice cannot be duplicated. So he's just letting us know here that he has changed a few things just to protect people that may not want to be directly associated with some of the stories coming in here, especially ones where people died in combat, just to protect the families, but not to change the story, though. I must deal with the accuracy of accounts given 20 years after the fact. No doubt time has eroded some of the details and thrown a fog around some chronology. Remarkably, however, I do not think this happened very often. In this regard, possessing the 25th Division's documentation was invaluable. When men remembered the exact date of an action, it appeared in the records every time. Furthermore, between the records and a large body of oral evidence, I became fairly well immunized from outright falsehood. I am a trained researcher and skeptic, but only a handful of occasions did I decide someone was creating fantasy. Perhaps some of the details are wrong. On the other hand, war is extraordinarily intense, and it etches some moments deeply in the mind. He's just accepting the fact that memory is fleeting. At the time the book was written, it had been over 20 years since the Vietnam War, and he's just saying that, hey, I'm giving you the account that I was given. That doesn't mean it's 100% correct. A lot of the things that I was told are 100% able to be corroborated, but that doesn't mean that everything is exact. Memory works like that sometimes, but this is the account that was given to me. That's what he's saying here to us. 20 years is not too long a time to try to put the war into perspective. I have seen hundreds of letters written by young soldiers during the war, but though they are very interesting, they reveal an unavoidable lack of mature judgment. If time is an enemy in the realm of detail, it is a friend in the more important area of context. 20 years ago, the men and women I interviewed could have perhaps done better at describing what happened. Today, however, they have a much better idea of why things happened. That is a trade well worth making. So he's just letting us know that a lot of the interviews he's using don't have the context of being able to look at the war 20 years after it happened. He does add some context where it's necessary. Inevitably, I have made errors somewhere. Nevertheless, I sincerely believe that this volume is based on the most honest historical data I have ever used. The motivation of respondents is beyond reproach. There is no financial gain involved, none has a public reputation to rescue from critics, and no respondents attempted to glorify themselves. They want to teach, they want the truth about Vietnam as they saw it to be known. Few researchers are as lucky as I have been. He's just taking the complete stance that something in this book is wrong. Whether it's something that he transcribed wrong, something that he understood wrong, or something that was remembered or told wrong, or a lie that got past him. We can't be 100% certain of all of our sources. All we can do is look at the greater context that was given to us and decide if it does fit the narrative there. And if so, it has credence. So his stories may have some errors, but he has done his best job of relating what was told to him as close to that as possible. Although the 25th Division lacks the widespread reputation of some of the elite Army units, no other division can match its literary pedigree. After World War II, 25th veteran James Jones recounted wartime life in his famous trilogy. James Jones wrote Thin Red Line most famously. More recently, some aspects of the 25th tour in Vietnam have been well portrayed. Al Santoli, author of two splendid oral histories concerning Vietnam, Everything We Had and To Bear Any Burden, served with the 25th. Two British journalists, Tom Mangold and John Pennycote, wrote The Tunnels of Cu Chi, an interesting account of the war that developed around the enemy safe zone in the Hobo and Boi Loi Woods. Director Oliver Stone was with the 25th in Vietnam and relayed his views of the war in the movie Platoon. Larry Heineman was another 25th Division veteran. His powerful novel, Paco's Story, won the National Book Award. Heineman's earlier work, Close Quarters, is a vivid chronicle of field life in the Tropic Lightning Division, and in my opinion, one of the greatest of American war novels. So he's giving us a little context of why he's following the 25th, and that is just because associated or attached to the 25th Division, there were a lot of storytellers, authors, directors, journalists that came out of there. So the guys of the 25th did a very good job of keeping records, so that makes it a very easy choice to to choose them as your subject, because there's just an abundance of material. Guys, I definitely recommend reading this book if you want to get a little more grasp of what a first-hand life is like for a combat division in Vietnam. It's a very great read, a little depressing at points, but that's the topic of it. Thank you very much.